Teaching Kitchen. We have quite a few people on today, so that's kind of fun. Everybody's on summer mode. Today's theme is protein. And I kind of feel a little bit like a social media, influencer person talking about protein all the time. But it really is so important. And as we talked about in last week's webinar, protein is key to our muscle building. It's key to our immune system. It is key to our hormone balance. We have to have protein to create all of these things within our body. And most people are not eating enough. And most people, as we get into our senior years, really aren't eating enough. So it's super important to add more. And I think when we hear protein, we think chicken, fish, steak. How can I eat more of that? How am I supposed to eat more steak, more chicken, more eggs? I'm not all that hungry, but there's lots of ways that we can add protein to foods that we're already eating in really creative ways. And that's my goal for today, is to show 3 different recipes that it may be foods you already love, maybe foods you're already making, and ways that we can just add a little bit more protein to those things. And I'm also just gonna show you some of my favorite high protein ingredients and just give you ideas for using them as well. So today's gonna be a little bit different in that we'll do some recipes, but we're also just gonna talk about products. Today's also a little bit different if you've been on other cooking classes with me, because I'm gonna try a brand new recipe with you that I've never tried before. So we're gonna, fingers crossed, we're gonna try it and see how it goes. And if it's, no matter what, it's my lunch today. So I'll let you guys know how it turns out. So we're gonna start with that brand new recipe because it does take a little bit of time to bake in the oven. So I wanna make it, pop it in the oven, and then we'll go do some other things and see it at the end. So what we're going to do is a cottage cheese pizza. And I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes because you're like, oh my gosh, more cottage cheese things. Everyone's making bread and things out of cottage cheese. And I know, I get it. It's a little overdone, but it's being overdone for a reason. Cottage cheese is incredibly high in protein. I just realized I left my container of it in the fridge. This is the brand I'm using today. It's called Good Culture. Good Culture and Nancy's brand. These are 2 different brands. Good Culture and Nancy's, like the name Nancy. You can find them at most grocery stores now, even like Stater Brothers, Albertsons. They're not necessarily like Whole Foods specific. But the reason I like these 2 cottage cheese brands are twofold. One, they are fermented and they don't heat after fermentation like a lot of cottage cheese brands do. So in addition to the protein, you're also getting probiotics from this. So you can think of this as kind of like your yogurt dose for the day. So it's good for our gut. And because of that fermentation, it's really thick. So if you're someone like me who kind of the really liquidy, watery cottage cheeses is just like, not a good texture, you might really like these brands. I also like that thickness for the recipe we're going to making a pizza out of it, because if it's really watery, this recipe will not work. Okay, so this is the brand I'm using. Cottage cheese per 1/2 cup serving is 14 grams of protein. Okay, so if we recall back to our webinar from a couple weeks ago, which you can find in the recordings tab on the website, 14 to 15 grams is considered 1 portion of protein. Ideally for a snack, we want anywhere from 8 to 15 grams of protein, and for a meal, we want 25 to 30. So if I'm having 1/2 cup of cottage cheese, I'm having a really great snack, or I'm having half of a meal. Okay, so for the recipe that we're going to make right now, we're gonna make a cottage cheese-based pizza crust. So there's no wheat or bread involved in this, it's just cottage cheese. We're gonna use 1 full cup of cottage cheese. So what is that? Almost 30 grams of protein. So in just our pizza crust that we're about to make, it's a full meal. Okay, and that's not even counting toppings or if we're having something on the side. So this is a really great protein source. And again, I have not made it before, so we're gonna say fingers crossed. Here's what I did just now. I've been setting that 1 cup of cottage cheese in my little colander for the past, 10 minutes or so right before class. Like as I was setting up, I just put it in here. The reason for that is I want to drain out any excess liquid. In my sink, I would say I have maybe a teaspoon of liquid. Because this brand is already a really thick brand, there's not a lot of excess liquid. But if you don't have this brand, you're definitely going to want to do the draining part of that, because any extra liquid is just going to make this recipe liquidy. It's not going to work. So now I have my really thick cup of cottage cheese, and I'm going to dump it onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. So this is just parchment paper. And I'm just going to press it into like an individual pizza, a single serving pizza size. It doesn't have to be perfect. And this is where you get to have a little fun and be creative in how thick or thin you want it. If you want a really big pizza, it would be a bit more thin crust. Thick pizza, you'd make it smaller. Now, anytime we do alternative type products, things like cauliflower rice, things like cottage cheese pizza crust, you are not going to go into this expecting it to taste like a regular pizza. That is the biggest complaint I ever get when I do these kinds of things from people. Is like, it didn't actually taste like a normal pizza. Well, no, it's made of cottage cheese. It's not made of bread. Of course it's not going to taste like regular pizza. But does it have the flavorings and the profile, the flavor profile, and a bit of the texture, and to give you the pizza vibe and be enjoyable? Do you like it? Does it taste enough like pizza to where if you're a pizza lover, could you have this for lunch on the regular and then maybe go to Pizza Hut on Friday nights instead with your family instead of on a regular basis? That's the goal here, is not to completely replace pizza, but to give a healthy alternative that sort of meets that satisfactory need without the actual pizza, okay? So we've got our crust. We're now going to sprinkle on a half cup of finely grated Parmesan cheese. Now I used this handy little guy, the microplaner. I used this with just a block of Parmesan to get it really finely shredded. It took me like 3 minutes. And I didn't honestly measure very well. And I'm gonna sprinkle all my Parmesan over the top. Just sort of like spread it out. The reason for this is, one, obviously it's gonna give us the cheesiness of a crust. It's gonna give us that umami saltiness of a crust. But it also helps kind of keep the cottage cheese together, because cheese is like a binder, okay? And cheese happens to have more protein. So look at that. We've got 28 grams of protein in our crust. In a half cup of Parmesan, we're probably getting somewhere around 6 or 7 grams of protein. So by itself right here, we're at a full meal. All right, so I'm gonna pop this in my oven at 350 for 30 minutes. We're gonna check it a little on the early side, but 30 minutes, and then we put toppings on. So let me get it in there to get it baking. Okay, let some people in from the waiting room. All right, so once that bakes, because we have some time to kill here, I'm gonna go over what my toppings are gonna be. So that's gonna bake for about 30 minutes. It's my individual pizza. Yes, you can make multiple at one time, so you could definitely have 4 or 5 of those if you want, or if you're making little individual pizzas for the family. And then when it's done, I'm gonna put my toppings on and pop it back in for just another couple of minutes until everything gets nice and melty. The toppings I'm gonna use today, the recipe calls for marinara sauce. Okay, so whatever, but you use whatever tomato-based sauce you like. I'll give you a cool little tip, for pizzas, use tomato paste. So I have a little block here, ice cube size, of tomato paste. Because what do we always do when we use tomato paste in a recipe? Every recipe calls for like a tablespoon or 2. And then you have the rest of that dang can full of tomato paste, and what are you supposed to do with that? So what you do with it is you take some parchment paper, you put scoops of maybe a tablespoon or 2 sizes, and you pop it in the freezer. And once they're frozen, you put them in a little Ziploc bag, and I at all times have a Ziploc bag full of individual portions of tomato paste that take, 15 to 20 minutes to thaw. And tomato paste by itself is a lovely pizza sauce. It's nice and thick. It's not like a regular marinara where it's gonna pour over everything and kind of fall off. It's got all the awesome lycopene and vitamin C of the cooked tomato. It's all in there. Tomato paste never has other additives like sometimes pizza sauces and tomato sauces do. It's just tomato and sometimes salt. There's never any sugar or anything added in. So you're getting more nutrition, which is fantastic, in a really nice pizza sauce type of situation. So that's what I'm gonna use as my sauce. And then I'm gonna put on just a little bit more cheese because we already put quite a bit of cheese on top of the crust, so I'm not gonna use a whole lot more. And then I'm going to use, I wanted to get pepperoni, but they were out. And so this brand had these little tiny kind of salami guys. And this is by the brand Applegate Farms. Let's see if I can get that closer. Applegate Farms. Applegate Farms is a pasture-raised farm, so all of their animal products are pasture-raised and grass-fed, and they don't do any additives. Now, that said, it is a salami. It is highly processed. Pepperoni, salami, sausages, any processed animal product that you can't really tell where in the animal it came from as opposed versus, like a drumstick or something, is going to have more salt and a lot more saturated fat than other types of processed meat. So it's a good source of protein. It's also higher in saturated fat than other sources of protein. So keep that in mind as you're building your foods. I'm gonna use it because I don't eat this type of food very often, and I'm gonna kind of watch the rest of my saturated fat for the rest of the day. So just kind of keep that in mind with your protein products, is some of them can be much higher in saturated fat. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just something to weigh out for the balance of your day and your own health needs. If saturated fat is something you're really trying to minimize, you could easily put some chopped chicken on top of your pizza. You also don't have to add any meat at all because we're getting so much protein from the cottage cheese, right? You could just make it a vegetarian-based pizza. And I am also going to add some vegetables. We had roasted zucchini and onions in our dinner last night, so I just saved the little bit of leftover, and I'm going to put that on top of my pizza as well. And then that will be my lunch for the day. I'll probably have it with a side salad to add some more fiber, okay? So I'll let you know how that turns out because I have not made that one before, but it had really good reviews from someone I really like online. Now, we're going to go back to the oven. We're going to go from pizza to dessert. I know, what has come over me? I am just giving you all the fun recipes this week. We're going to make an individual cookie, a single serve, high protein cookie so that you can have it to meet that dessert need. Maybe you had a really low protein lunch. Maybe you just had like a big salad, or you had a peanut butter jelly sandwich. You could have a cookie. You could have dessert afterward. And we're not talking fiber, but we are talking a high amount of protein. So this one's so easy. We are going to use any of your favorite protein powder. I do find this recipe works best with whey-based protein powder. It doesn't work quite as well with vegan protein powders. There's something with having all of the amino acids there from the whey that it just binds a little better. It's not quite as, it kind of fell apart a bit on me when I used my Garden of Life protein powder. So I'm using Just Ingredients. This is a brand I really love of protein powders, and they have all different flavors. I mean, they have like lemon protein powder, just crazy stuff. But I really like their French vanilla because it kind of just tastes good in everything. And this protein powder is made of collagen and whey. So you're also getting good collagen for your bones and tissues and joints, especially if you're in resistance training exercise program. We want the collagen to help kind of rebuild all that tissue. So this is just a one cookie. We're just making it for you. So this is not a big batch. So we're just going to do 3 tablespoons of protein powder. 1, 2, 3. Their French vanilla one kind of smells like cake batter. I love opening it up. It's like, oh, it smells so good. French vanilla for that one. You are also going to do 2 tablespoons of unsweetened peanut butter. I have different brands of peanut butter all the time. Every store you go to will have an unsweetened peanut butter brand. They're gonna vary. So this one happens to come from the Thrive online market because when I did my Thrive order, I needed peanut butter. But oftentimes I've used the Kirkland brand. Their all natural peanut butter is fantastic. There's no added sweetener. Now, this is a misnomer. A lot of people think that peanut butters and nuts and seeds are good sources of protein. They're not. They're actually more like fats than they are protein. Now they have some protein, which is fantastic. It can add up to kind of meeting your protein needs. Like let's say you're having oatmeal and you only like to add, 1 scoop of protein powder, which is maybe 10 grams of protein. You can add a little peanut butter, add some chia seeds. You can kind of slowly add up to your total amount because there is protein here, but in a 2 tablespoon serving, you're getting 8 grams of protein. So that's not even quite a full serving of protein. So just to kind of keep in mind, I talk to a lot of people that say, oh, I have peanut butter on my toast, so there's my protein. Well, we're not quite getting to that full protein amount, 15 grams per snack, 25 to 30 per meal. So I just added in a 3 tablespoon amount of protein powder, that's probably about 15-ish grams. And we added 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, so that's 8. So we're well over 20 grams of protein in our cookie, in our 1 serving cookie, which is so, so cool. All right, now we're going to add our sweetener. This is going to significantly vary in what type of sweetener you use and how much. My protein powder is sweetened with monk fruit. It's already pretty sweet. So I usually just add like a little drizzle of sweetener to this. But if you're using a completely unsweetened, unflavored protein powder, you might want to use the full 1.5 tablespoons of sweetener that the recipe calls for. So I put in a range, 1/2 to 1.5 tablespoons of liquid sweetener. You do want it to be liquid. It'll just mix in better. And this can be any sweetener you want. This can be honey, this can be agave, this can be allulose, which would give you almost no blood sugar spike. I just put in a tiny, like we're talking 1/2 teaspoon there, of date syrup, which is a little bit lower glycemic on the glycemic index. You choose your sugar based on how sweet your protein powder is, how sweet you want your cookie, and what your blood sugar needs are if you're able to give yourself a little spike or not. Okay, we're also, just to kind of make it not quite so thick, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of water. Ooh. There we go. A little bit of vanilla, so we're talking like a 1/4 teaspoon here because we don't want to overpower it. Our 1 cookie. I constantly have to remind myself that this is just a 1 serving recipe. Because it feels so weird to be using just tiny amounts. It also, so speaking of tiny amounts, 1/16 of a teaspoon. When I send these recipes out to you, that's not a typo. It is 1/16 of a teaspoon. Most people don't have a 1/16 teaspoon. I have a 1/8. So 1/16 would be 1/2 of that little scoop. 1/16 of a teaspoon of baking soda. And 1/16 of a teaspoon of sea salt. So just a little half of my 1/8. And I'm gonna mix that all up. And it looks a little funky as you start stirring. You're like, this is gonna be a cookie, but then all of a sudden it starts mixing together, and it's like, oh yeah, doesn't that look like cookie dough? We got a dough going. And then you get to add your mixings. So you could do chocolate chips, you could do coconut flakes, you could do nuts, you could do white chocolate chips. Just keep in mind it's 1 cookie, so you don't need much. We need like 5 or 6 chocolate chips, right? So I have a little mix of unsweetened coconut flakes, chocolate chips, and walnuts. Just a couple to make it yummy. I've done this before for my kids, and I've just put sprinkles in it. Oh, and by the way, if you don't want to use peanut butter or even allergy, you can use any nut or seed butter. You could put tahini in here, and that would be higher calcium. So for someone with osteoporosis, now we're getting protein and calcium. You could do you could do sunflower seed butter. So just to kind of keep in mind, you can make those swaps. Okay. Now we're gonna bake this guy. So I have my little cookie Silpat thing, the anti-stick Silpat. You may have that. If you don't, you could just use parchment paper. And you roll it out onto your little non-stick thing. You could also grease it if you don't have parchment paper or anything. Look how big and awesome this cookie is gonna be. It's like this huge individual cookie, and it just makes you feel like if you're a volume eater, you're like, yes, I get a huge cookie. And this cookie is 20 plus grams of protein, 20 to 22 grams of protein. depending on your protein powder. It's also about 14 grams of fiber. So you're getting some really good nutrition here, and the carb count is really low. It's really based more on your sweetener. How much sweetener did you use? The carb count is going to be anywhere from 2 grams to maybe 7 if you're using a larger amount of, straight honey or something like that. So even then, it's a very small amount of carb that's being balanced out with protein and fiber. This would be, if you're someone who's maybe struggling with gaining muscle mass in a resistance training, you can eat this after your resistance training exercise, and that would be that awesome little protein boost to get you there. But like I said, it's really my favorite thing for when I'm having a sweet craving, and especially if I have a lower protein meal. Sometimes for lunch, I'll pack myself a salad with like a small can of tuna, and that can of tuna is somewhere around 16 grams of protein. So it's okay, but for a meal, it's not 25 grams. So then I'll have this afterward, and it kind of just makes it feel more complete. I'm more satisfied since I just had a salad, and I really meet my protein needs. Oh, don't want to miss anything. You could also make 2 smaller cookies, right? You could do that too. And you're gonna bake this for 7 minutes, also at 350. Okay, I'm looking at our cottage cheese pizza in there, and it is starting to leak a little bit. There's some water coming out of it. It doesn't look like a lot, but it is leaking. So I don't know if that means I didn't drain enough. Again, we'll see at the end of when it's fully baked what it tastes like, but just keep me posted on that. All right, we have one more recipe to go. And this one I'm not going to fully prepare for you because it's a breakfast that I'm going to eat tomorrow, and it doesn't taste quite as good the next day. This is kind of one of those meals that tastes best straight out of the oven. But we're going to make French toast casserole. And it's going to be high protein, and it's going to be low carb, and it's going to be high fiber, and it's super good, and it tastes like dessert for breakfast. So first, we are going to make our mix, the French toast liquid. And this is how you prep ahead this recipe. If you're like, I love this dish, but I do want to prep it ahead, instead of making the whole thing ahead and reheating it, which it's just not quite as good. Anyone who's ever had leftover French toast is like, it's not as good the next day. The way you would meal prep it instead is to make the whole liquid base ahead of time, which is what I'm going to do. And then the next day, just pour it over the bread that I'll show you how to do as well. So we're going to get 5 eggs. I am using pasture-raised eggs from Sprouts, just their Sprouts brand. Now, the pasture-raised portion of that, get my little thing out for my compost, does not have anything to do with the amount of protein. Whether you get cage-free or pasture-raised or just regular eggs, the protein content is the same. Okay, there's no change there in how much protein is in your egg. The difference in the eggs between pasture-raised and organic and all of those is the number of nutrients in the egg and the type of fat. So in a pasture-raised egg, you're getting much more vitamin D and other types of phytonutrients like vitamin A, and you're getting much less saturated fat and cholesterol and more omega-3s. So it's just more nutrient dense. It's not necessarily more protein. So again, it's all kind of like, what's important to you? What are you focusing on in your health? Egg is a good source of protein, and you just have to decide what type of egg to buy for your personal needs. So 5 eggs. As a reminder, each egg is 7 or 8 grams of protein. So, a lot of times I'll hear people say, oh, I have a hard-boiled egg for breakfast. Well, that's only 7 to 8 grams of protein. So we have to add on to that to really meet our protein needs. So I have 5 eggs that I am going to just whisk up a little bit. You need a skinny whisk if you're going to do it in a jar like this. If anyone has ever done the egg yolk test, if you get regular eggs next to pasture-raised eggs, the egg yolk of the pasture-raised is like deep dark orange like these versus a regular egg is yellow. And we always talk about, eating the rainbow, the colors of the food or where the nutrients are, so that shows you the nutrient density of a pasture-raised egg. All right, 5 eggs, 1 cup of coconut milk, You do want some kind of fat in this. The fat helps to thicken up the whole mixture and it just tastes better, satiety wise. So you can use any milk you want. It doesn't have to be coconut. It can be cow milk. It can be any milk. But do choose a milk that has some fat. So don't use skim, don't use almond. You can use low fat milk. It doesn't have to be full fat either. Coconut milk is obviously a higher fat milk, but it's just got such sweetness to it that I love it in sweeter tasting dishes. All right, 1 cup of canned coconut milk. Set that aside. And again, you can use sweetener or not. Use a higher glycemic sweetener or a lower glycemic sweetener. Just avoid the artificial sweeteners. I'm just going to do a little bit of date syrup. The recipe calls for up to a 1/4 cup. I really prefer mine not as sweet because I mix it with fruit, and I'm going to show you how to make a yummy vanilla sauce on top. So I don't add anywhere near that. I add about a tablespoon. But you play with that on your own. Vanilla, a teaspoon. And some cinnamon, about a tablespoon or so. Okay, so far we have, and this by the way serves 4 people. So far we have 5 eggs as really the only source of protein in here, right? Because we have fat from the coconut milk. So if I divided that by 4 people, so far I'd have 10 grams of protein by my sauce itself. So it's not a complete meal yet when we're considering protein. So what are we going to do about that? First, let's just shake up our mix here. This is all you got to do. It's so easy. Kind of looks like eggnog. And then just the next day before you use it, give it a good shake again. And what I always do, this is like your pro hack, is get painter's tape and label your jars so that your husband doesn't come through and think that it's, milk or something for his cereal. So I'm going to put French toast mix, because we've had mix-ups before in my house. All right, so there's that. What are we going to do for our bread to make this a high-protein meal? We are going to use one of my favorite brands, Primal Bakery protein bread. What? Now, you don't have to use this bread, okay? You could use a keto bread, which would probably be higher in fiber and fat than protein. You could use regular bread. This recipe is good with all bread, but I'm trying to show you how you can take these delicious recipes and enhance them with more protein. Because if you used regular bread, you'd still have a way healthier French toast casserole than pretty much anything out there, and you'd still get about 10 grams of protein. Maybe you have that on the side of some sausage or some scrambled eggs, or maybe you have collagen in your coffee. But if you just want that French toast casserole itself to be high protein, you can get this brand. This brand I've only found at Sprouts, Mother's, and Whole Foods so far. And they have bread and they have wraps. And they are per 2 slices, 16 grams of protein. So you have a full serving. So it's great for sandwiches, toast. If you're someone who just loves that peanut butter toast in the morning and that's what you want for breakfast, have it on 2 slices of this, you're at 16, and now again, maybe you put some collagen in your coffee, and boom, you're at your 20, 25 grams of protein. So we're gonna use our whole loaf, and you're just gonna cut it into bite-sized pieces. Anyone's paying super close attention to my hands, you'll notice I have this delightful little Band-Aid on my finger because I was cutting potatoes and sliced off a whole little chunk there. So be careful with your knives, otherwise you have to use glow-in-the-dark Band-Aids for a couple of weeks if you have kids. If you have kids and you don't have regular kinds of Band-Aids. I would say I should have counted the number of slices in that loaf. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there were about 10. So if this whole thing serves 4 people and 2 slices is 16 grams, you're talking probably from bread alone, 20 grams of protein in one serving, and then you add the mixture on top, you're definitely at 30 grams of protein per meal with this dish. Okay, so if I was going to make this right now, I would take all this bread and I would put it in a baking dish, a like 8x8 baking dish, with frozen blueberries, about a cup of frozen blueberries, or literally any fruit you want. If you want to go peaches with this one because it's summer fruit season, go for it. Mixed berries, it's all yummy, but we're getting our antioxidants that way. So a cup of, and they don't have to be frozen, by the way. Frozen is just easy, but they can be fresh. So a cup of berries, all of our bread, put them in our baking dish, take our French toast liquid mixture, pour it all over the top, pop it in the oven at 350 for 40 to 50 minutes. Done. So good. It's really kind of a showstopper. So if you were going to do like a brunch type thing for friends or family, it's really quite pretty. But it's a great, easy way to have French toast for breakfast on a weekday too, because all of this is now prepped. All I have to do in the morning when I wake up is put those in the dish, cover it, put it in the oven while I get ready, and then we all have this like awesome high protein, really decadent breakfast to get us going in for the day. So since I'm not making it right now, I am going to put all my little French toast cubes into my bag for tomorrow when I make it. And I will take a picture of it and report back out to all of you. But you also don't have to worry about these drying out, because bread, once you cut it and leave it open, it can dry out because you're putting it into a casserole. So it doesn't matter at all. You can do all this prep ahead of time. These could even be frozen bread cubes. You could take them out of the freezer, let them defrost for a few minutes, and then put them in the casserole. All right, so we've got that and that. And the last thing I want to show you is the sauce that we're going to put on top of our French toast casserole. Oh, forgot a bread guy. It's pretty good on its own. You might not even feel like you need a sauce, but if you want something just a little extra, a little decadent, you can make a vanilla sauce. I make this sauce all the time. When we have pancakes, when we have French toast, when we have waffle, anytime I feel like I need a sweet sauce, sometimes I'll just make it with fruit to dip it. I make this sauce, and it's so easy, it's ridiculous. I use kefir. If you're not familiar with kefir, it's liquid yogurt. Usually it needs a little shake up. And I'm going to make it sweet and vanilla tasting and thicken it up. So that's about a cup. Per cup of kefir, I'm going to take my vanilla protein powder again. And this could be any brand you want it to be. But you do want it to be vanilla. Otherwise, you'd have to sweeten it and use vanilla to make it vanilla. So you'd want vanilla protein powder, or you could do chocolate protein powder and make it a chocolate sauce. That would be yummy. But per 1 cup of kefir, you want about 1.5 scoops of protein powder. And that kind of thickens it up. Woo! Spatter. And this is, I'll try and show you the thickness of it. So see how that's a little bit thicker than a typical, if you've ever used kefir before. Kefir's a little bit watery, so it's a little bit thicker. So now it's a sauce. So now we could, again, drizzle this over fruit, use it instead of syrup for our pancakes. It's so good. If you love your protein powder, you'll then love your sauce here. Oh, I forgot to get my other lid. Oh well, I'll label that too and put a lid on it. And now I'm going to drizzle that over my French toast. Even better, per 1 cup of kefir, I also have 10 grams of protein. So now I also have protein in my sauce. So we're just looking for all these ways that we can enhance things that we're already doing. If you are someone who loves oatmeal or loves cereal, you could easily do that same trick of adding a protein powder to your milk or to kefir to then put in your oatmeal or your cereal and enhance that pretty much just carb food with some protein that way as well. So those are some of my favorite things to do, is use things like yogurts, kefirs, cottage cheeses, protein powders to amplify the protein in a meal that maybe doesn't already have it. Just realized my little Band-Aid came off. That's gross in the kitchen. Good thing you're not all here. You'd be like, oh no. All right, let me look at our pizza. Trying to decide what to make out of this, you guys. Like if I'm liking it or if I'm not liking it. Let's check it out. We've got 2 minutes left on the clock here, so I'm just gonna pull it out. See, I told you some of the liquid came out. All right, what do we think here? It still feels a little mushy to me, but it's getting there. So I want to show you a picture, or not a picture, show you what it looks like up close. That's what our pizza looks like. I don't want to dip it too much because it has some liquid on it. I think this is going to take another, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes, but it's definitely getting there. Let me see if I can lift it up for you. See how it's kind of sticky, but it is stuck together. It's starting to lift. So I don't know if next time I should try it a little bit thicker, but I think it definitely needs at least another 5 or 6 minutes. So we won't get to see the finished product together, but we tried something new together, and you'll have to tell me if you try it. And here is our cookie that looks so yummy. Yay! One individual protein cookie that I get to have for dessert, whether my pizza turns out delicious or not. I have earned dessert today. But that one I've made before. I've made it so many times with different types of mix-ins. Well, I should have done it on a regular spatula. But anyway, it's a tasty one. It smells great. So let me see what questions you have. Let me pull those up. Oh, lots of questions. Okay, everybody. Let me go to the top. For the cookie, can I use Vital Proteins collagen powder? Yes, you could. For the cookie, you can use any protein powder you want. I do find that I think I said this, but the whey and the animal-based, so collagen is also animal-based protein powders, tend to just stick a little bit more. The plant-based protein powders I've used kind of crumble. So Vital Proteins would be great. The only caveat to that is that if you're using the Vital Proteins plain, unsweetened, you would definitely want to add a little bit more sweetener than I added to mine because my protein powder was sweetened already. I've been hearing that dairy can increase the risk of prostate and breast cancer from the natural hormones in milk. Is having high protein hard on the kidneys that can cause kidney stones and other kidney problems? So two kind of separate questions. The cancer piece of that, there's not enough research at all to prove that one way or another. Any of the dairy and cancer risk studies that I have seen there's too many other confounding factors. So yes, they maybe had higher risk of prostate cancer the more milk they drank, but those people were also not exercising, or they were also eating non-grass-fed animal products and eating more quantity than they should have in a regular day. A lot of the research is actually done on rats, and the rats are drinking in way more of a portion of milk than humans would. So it's really hard to make conclusions based on that alone. I will say that adults, we don't process milk as well as we do when we're young kids. And sometimes when you're not processing things, that can lead to risk of any type of condition. But no, there's not been any definite risk of prostate or breast cancer from milk. And also anything that's naturally in a milk, like a hormone, is actually killed off in the pasteurization process. So that's why they have to add a lot of nutrients back into milk, so that the hormone part of that actually wouldn't even apply unless you're having raw milk. The high protein being hard on the kidneys, it can be if you already have kidney concerns. So it's kind of one of these things where high protein intake does not cause kidney disorders, but if you have a kidney disorder, you may be on a protein limitation in your diet, because then once your kidneys are already not working well, it's hard to process that much protein. But your typical healthy kidney is able to handle large amounts of protein, and most people are not eating more than 30 to 35, maybe 40 grams of protein in a meal. So you'd be having to have a lot more than that for your kidneys to be saying, no, like if they're healthy kidneys. So hopefully that answers that. What is a good amount of protein to eat per meal? How many grams? 25 to 30 is the goal for most people. If you're working out excessively, doing really intense, high intensity training, like resistance wise, you could go up to 40 to 45 grams a meal, but most people do not need that. And then like a snack would be somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 grams of protein. I used to eat a lot of dairy like yogurt and cheese, but in my 60s, I got osteoporosis anyway. So osteoporosis is not tied to dairy intake. There's a lot of different reasons for osteoporosis happening. There's the genetic component. There's the menopause component. You can drink and eat all the dairy you want and get all the right amount of calcium, but if you have a genetic risk for osteoporosis and then you kick into menopause and your estrogen plummets, there's no amount of calcium that's going to prevent that. The point of dairy and with calcium and vitamin D for osteoporosis is to make sure that your osteoporosis doesn't significantly progress further. So once we have osteopenia or osteoporosis, we know that the bones are going to start breaking down. How do we get them to rebuild and not break down as quickly? Significant resistance training, calcium, vitamin D, and protein. Okay. Can I get enough protein from beans and veggies? You'd have to eat a lot of beans and veggies to meet it. You can, but you'd have to eat quite a bit. You really want to look at your portion sizes and the variety of other plant products. If you're vegetarian, you want to have some source of soy maybe, since that's more complete protein. So yeah, you can get there, but you're going to be on the low end, and you'd have to be very, very aware of your portion sizes. Sorry if okay, 1 second. I heard my timer beep, so I just want to take that pizza out. I don't know, you guys. I don't know if this is a pizza crust. I think it's going to be yummy, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick it up like a pizza. It looks too thin. Maybe I made it too thin. I'll try again. Sorry if I missed it, but with protein, what protein powders do you recommend? Lots. It depends on what you're making. I really love whey and collagen from a complete protein standpoint. They have all the amino acids you need, especially collagen. Most of us don't eat very much of it, so it's really good for our bones, tissues, and joints. This brand is Just Ingredients. I buy it from their website, Just Ingredients. They have lots of different flavors. They sweeten their things with stevia and monk fruit only, and they are made of whey and collagen powder. I really like Vital Proteins collagen powder. I like Garden of Life. If you're looking for a plant-based protein powder, just know that protein powders that are plant-based, if you're looking for that and you don't want animal, look for ones that have multiple sources of protein in the ingredients. So not just pea protein, not just hemp protein, but multiple sources, so you're getting lots of amino acids there. And look for ingredients that are not including sugar. Where do I find the recipes? I will email them to you, and you will also find them in the caption of the video recordings once I post the recording. And And also, so I will email to anyone who's registered. If you did not register, if someone sent you the link somehow, something like that, then you won't receive it in your inbox, in which case email me. Can someone with type 1 diabetes eat these meals? Yes, absolutely, please eat these meals. Everything I cook for is with the lens of insulin resistance, because in my mind, in all the research I've ever seen, insulin resistance underlies pretty much everything. So that's from type 1 to type 2 diabetes to inflammatory conditions. So you will never find a recipe from me that is not looking at glycemic balance. So it's always going to be good for either type of diabetes. I will say with type 1, you just want to, if you're giving yourself insulin, you'd want to make sure you're preparing for a lower insulin amount, because all these recipes are pretty low glycemic. So you're not going to have to dose as much with your insulin. Is there a particular brand? I'm assuming you mean protein powder. So I showed you just ingredients. I only have 2 brands in my house right this second. Here's Vital Proteins, the collagen one. But like I said, if you're looking for a plant protein, Garden of Life is a great one. Sun Warrior is another good plant-based protein powder. I'm trying to think if there's any other protein powders I quite like. Those are kind of my main ones. Truvani is kind of expensive, but that's a good brand of protein powder as well. And I believe that is a mix of collagen and whey. What is a good amount of protein to eat per meal? I believe I answered that one, but just to repeat, per meal, 25 to 30 grams of protein. An email address. So my email is all over our website, and St. Jude Wellness is stjudewellness@stjoe.org is our company email, and my email is megan.rowe@stjoe.org. I think I got through them. Awesome questions. You guys are interested in protein. I love it. All right, I'm gonna, since it cooled off a little bit, I'll show you real quick before we leave. Here is our cottage cheese pizza crust. Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna be able to pick that up into pieces. So what I'm probably gonna do is add toppings, bake it again, see if that does anything. And if not, I'll probably just eat it with a fork. I'm sure it will be really good. But guys, if you're gonna try the cottage cheese pizza, make it thicker, on the thick side of things. And then I'll just, when I send out the email with recipes and the video recording, I'll let you know how it went and see if you want to try it. And I'll send you the link to the original recipe I found and see if you can do anything better with it. It's always fun to try stuff. All right, everyone, I just want to make sure I got everything. Yep, got it all. So thanks for joining me. Next month's webinar, we're going to back to the basics, and it's Nutrition 101. We're going to go over like, what is a carb? What is a protein? What is a fat? And what types of fats are there? That will be our August topic for our webinar, No Cooking Class in August. So definitely check that one out, join in, and I will see you all soon. Thanks again.